We imagine them as fearless explorers, masters of the sea, carving empires from myth and legend. But the truth is far darker. Behind the longships and sagas lies a world ruled by vengeance, cruelty, and death so unimaginable that it scarred Europe for centuries. Tonight, we descend into the abyss of Viking brutality, the real stories of ritual murder, burning faith, and blood-soaked vengeance that define the Norse Age. The mask of glory. Between the 8th and 11th centuries, the Norse world stretched its reach from the icy shores of Scandinavia to the soft, trembling heartlands of Christian Europe. They traded, raided, and ruled. They burned monasteries and crowned kings. But the Viking Age wasn't just a saga of conquest. It was a crucible of faith, cruelty, and fear. These are not tales of heroes or gods. They are accounts of real men and women, crushed beneath the merciless machinery of Viking vengeance. Tonight, we uncover 4 moments when the Norse world revealed its darkest soul, when myth met horror, and the line between history and nightmare dissolved. The venomous end of the old boar. Ragnar Lodbrok's last breath. The story begins with Ragnar Lodbrok, perhaps the most legendary Viking to ever live, a warlord, raider, and kingmaker whose name struck fear across the British Isles. But even legends die. Around 865 CE, Ragnar launched an ill-fated raid against Northumbria. The sea was rough, his men few, and his luck had finally turned. Captured by Kingler of Northumbria, Ragnar was not executed as a warrior, but as a spectacle. They stripped him of his armor and lowered him, alive, into a pit crawling with venomous snakes. The pit was deep, the air heavy with the hiss of death. Each bite from an adder or viper injected a different kind of pain, neurotoxic paralysis, internal bleeding, and searing fever. The venom slowly dismantled the body from within. Hours of agony, hours of consciousness fading and returning. Ragnar's skin would have blistered and blackened. His muscles would have spasmed violently until his body collapsed beneath its own weight. How the little piglets would grunt if they knew how the old boar suffers. It was not a plea, it was a prophecy. Ragnar's dying words promised vengeance. Vengeance that would be carried out not by kings, but by his sons. Within a year, the great heathen army would land on English shores, an unstoppable tide of Norse fury led by Ragnar's sons, including the fearsome Ivar the Boneless. The snakes devoured one man, but their venom poisoned an entire age. The Blood Eagle, a king's unmaking. What began with a pit of serpents would end with an execution, so cruel, so meticulously symbolic, that its memory still chills the blood. This is the story of Kingler's death, and the ritual known as the Blood Eagle. When the sons of Ragnar captured Gler, they didn't simply want to kill him, they wanted to carve vengeance into his flesh, to make his body a message. According to the Orkneyinga saga and Ragnar's saga Lodbrokar, Gler was bound face down. Axes and blades were drawn. The executioners sliced open his back, separating his ribs from the spine. Then, with brutal precision, they pulled the bones outward, creating the image of wings. The lungs were drawn through the wounds, still warm, still rising and falling. Historians still argue if the Blood Eagle truly occurred, or if it was a poetic exaggeration. But in Viking culture, symbolism was often more powerful than fact. The ritual reflected their worldview, that vengeance was sacred, and pain could be divine. For the sons of Ragnar, Gler's death was not murder, it was justice delivered in the language of gods. The Blood Eagle was vengeance incarnate, a punishment so monstrous that it became myth, and yet, beneath the legend lies the same truth that defines every Viking story. Violence was both a ritual and a message. The sons of Ragnar did not merely avenge their father, they consecrated the art of cruelty. The obliteration of Asti, Biber's monastery, faith in flames, while kings and warlords battled for vengeance. Far from the fields of war, another horror was unfolding, one that revealed the cold, indiscriminate side of Viking violence. The year was 870 CE. On the windswept coast of Northumbria stood Asti, Beber's monastery at Coldingham, a sanctuary of peace and faith. When word reached the abbess that Viking sails had appeared on the horizon, panic swept through the cloister. The women knew what awaited them: captivity, violation, slavery, or worse. So the abbess made a decision, both horrifying and holy. She ordered every noon to mutilate herself, to destroy the beauty that would draw their captors' cruelty. With knives and shards of glass, the women cut off their noses and upper lips. Blood pooled on the stone floor of the chapel. They prayed through screams. The raiders entered, and what they found was not resistance, but faces scarred and blooded in defiance. The Vikings, unmoved, responded with icy precision. They barred the doors of the monastery, then set it ablaze. The screams carried across the sea. Every noon, including the abbess, was burned alive inside her own church. The chroniclers who recorded the event centuries later struggled to describe it. The Liber, Alensis calls it both an act of divine martyrdom and the darkest sin of men. But to the Vikings, Coldingham was not a massacre. It was another raid, another trophy of fear. And yet, within those flames, something sacred endured. The courage of those women became legend, proof that even in an age of terror, faith could still choose its own ending. The martyrdom of St. Edmund, the king and the pagan gods. As the great heathen army swept south, there remained one last bastion of resistance, the Christian kingdom of East Anglia, ruled by King Edmund. In 869 CE, Edmund faced the Norse invasion head-on. He was captured, not slain in battle, but taken alive. His captors, led by Ivar the Boneless and Brognarsson, offered him a choice: renounce Christ, or die in the name of his God. He refused. Bound to a tree, Edmund was scourged until his flesh split open. Then, Viking archers lined up their bows, not to kill swiftly, but to torture deliberately. Arrow after arrow pierced him, not in the heart, not in the throat, but across the body, arms, legs, stomach, until he resembled, as the chroniclers wrote, a hedgehog bristling with spines. Still, he prayed. Still, he refused to bow. When his voice finally faltered, they decapitated him and threw his head into the forest, so his followers could not bury him as a Christian king. Days later, legend says, the head was found guarded by a mysterious wolf, untouched, its eyes still open, its mouth whispering prayer. To his killers, it was a warning from their gods. To his people, it was a miracle. Edmund's death became the birth of a saint, St. Edmund the Martyr, and his shrine would stand for centuries as a reminder that faith, too, could outlive the axe. But for all its holiness, his end was also a testament to Viking cruelty, methodical, ritualistic, and absolute. They didn't just kill a man, they made his death a sermon. The legacy of fear, when cruelty became memory. Ragnar in the snake pit, Glub beneath the blood eagle. The nuns of Coldingham consumed by fire. Edmund pierced and beheaded. 4 deaths, each unique, each unforgettable, yet all bound by the same truth. In the Viking Age, cruelty was not chaos, it was policy. Fear was a weapon sharper than any sword. Every act of brutality, whether ritual or revenge, carried a message: submit, remember, obey. The chronicler Saxo Grammaticus once wrote, "Cruelty is remembered longer than valor." He was right. The Viking Age ended 1,000 years ago, but its darkness lingers in our stories, our myths, and our fascination with violence cloaked as honor. The longships have rotted, the warriors are dust, but their legends still sail on. Blood-red sails on a black sea. The weight of the axe. History remembers the Vikings as explorers, builders, and poets, and they were all of those things. But to truly know their world, we must also confront their shadows, the cruelty, the vengeance, the unflinching acceptance of death as destiny. They believed that to die well was to live forever. And perhaps, in some dark way, they were right. For even now, centuries later, we still speak their names, Ragnar, Gla, Edmund, and remember their pain as if it were our own. Which of these deaths do you think left the greatest mark on history? Share your thoughts in the comments below.